Hello dear viewers, welcome to the program Everything Catholic. That's your favorite program where we talk about everything as long as it is Catholic. Today we are continuing our discussion on the sacrament of matrimony with particular focus on matrimonial consent. My name is Father Silvanus Ame and I welcome you to the program, and as usual my brother here is here with me.
Reverend Father Boniface, neighbor, welcome.
To journey with us in the discussion on the topic of matrimonial consent is a renowned professor of canon law and a lecturer on the same course for the past 15 years in the National Missionary Seminary of St. Paul, a member of the Abuja Metropolitan Tribunal for the last 9 years, and in the tribunal she is defender of the bond and protector of justice.
Yeah.
And she is Reverend Sister Josephine Nwogugu, a member of the Congregation of the Holy Family Sisters of the Needy. Sister, you are most welcome to the program.
Thank you, Father.
Welcome,
Thank
sister.
you.
Yes.
So, with Sister's wealth of experience, she'll be sharing with us loads and loads of knowledge on matrimonial consent. So, Sister, to begin with, canon law says consent is what makes a marriage. So it is the exchange of it that establishes the marriage bond. So let's begin by asking, what is this thing called consent, and why is the sacrament of marriage dependent on it?
Matrimonial consent, according to the teaching of the Catholic Church, is an act of the will by which a man and a woman, through an irrevocable covenant, mutually give and accept each other in order to establish a marriage.
Okay.
And when consent is not legitimately manifested by the bride and the bridegroom, marriage does not come into existence.
Okay.
If the bride or the bridegroom, or both the bride and the bridegroom, are not legally qualified to place the marital consent that will make marriage will not be established.
Okay.
And if the manifested consent is effective, marriage also will not come into existence.
Okay.
So consent is so indispensable in the establishment of marriage that it is said without marriage, without consent,
yeah.
or if the consent is defective, that there is no marriage.
Okay.
And for the matrimonial consent to be this efficient cause of marriage, it must be free in all its entirety.
Okay.
It must be genuine, it must be sincere, it must also be mature. It must be enlightening in order to make this possibility of
Marriage
establishing
taking place.
marriage.
All right,
So any
sister.
manipulation of marital consent
Renders it
will
invalid.
render the consent defective, and marriage will eventually be invalid.
Okay, sorry, sister. You know, you have given a very beautiful understanding of what matrimonial consent is and how it is very, very central and indispensable to the sacrament of marriage. You'll be talking about defective consent. Now, how can a defective consent be discovered? But first of all, what is even the defective consent in itself?
Okay.
What does it imply?
When I said that matrimonial consent must be free.
Okay.
So, if matrimonial consent is not free, if it is not enlightened enough,
Informed, you mean?
informed enough, if it is not sincere enough, if it is falsified, all that can contribute to the defectiveness of matrimonial consent.
Okay, invariably one can say that you say yes, but you mean no.
Yes.
Wow, okay.
So there are factors, of course, in canon law, in the church's legislation,
Provisions, yes.
that portray this defectiveness,
Okay.
this
Of the
defect
consent, yeah.
of consent.
So basically, you are saying that consent that is given but has some basic elements lacking is what is referred to as defective consent. Okay, sister, thank you for that. Now, let's ask another fundamental question. Who is capable and who is incapable of giving matrimonial consent? Can anybody exchange consent? Or is there
Or
something
receive
that
either.
renders someone incapable of giving consent?
And possibly incapable of receiving as well.
Naturally,
Yes.
Every human being has a right to marriage.
Yes.
Okay, fundamentally.
That is the fundamental law of nature. But of course, the freedom is also limited in the sense that there are certain factors, there are certain conditions that a human being will find himself or herself. And that condition will render this person unqualified to enter into marriage. So, while the church upholds the right to marriage, the church also prohibits marriage when certain conditions are not met, when certain qualifications are not there.
Okay. Okay.
So can you give us some instances
Some instance
of categories of persons or circumstances that will render someone incapable or unqualified to give or receive consent?
Okay. Talking about the capacity to enter into that covenant called marriage, we'll consult the church legislations found in the Code of Canon Law. To be precise, Canon 1095.
Good.
Okay.
There are three categories of persons there who are said to be unqualified to enter into that covenant
Of marriage.
called marriage.
Okay.
Number one category are those who lack sufficient
Use of
use
reason.
of reason. This lack of sufficient use of reason could be actual in the sense that this person at this moment lack sufficient use of reason because of drunkenness, because of substance abuse, drug
Some
addiction.
influence.
So it is actual at the moment of the celebration of marriage. This person is drunk.
Control.
This person is not in full control of his faculties
Okay.
and is unable to place this matrimonial consent that will bring about marriage.
Marriage.
It can also be habitual in the sense that this person normally lack. This person habitually lack this sufficient use of reason. And this because of due to an illness of the mind. You understand?
Like
it
mental
could be
insanity.
insanity, it could be depression.
Okay.
But because of this condition, this person is habitually not able to place consent.
So,
Okay.
what about clerics? Clerics and religious, do they fall into this category of persons too who are incapable of
Capable of giving
receiving
consent?
Well, if you're talking about consent here, a cleric who is fit, you understand? But we're not, when you talk about clerics and religious, they are dragging us to impediments.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, impediments.
Impediments to marriage.
Which is different from consent.
Okay. All right.
So, by that, maybe we can still answer that a cleric, because he already has the bond of holy orders, is prohibited by law to enter into marriage. So that is a dirimate impediment because of his condition as a cleric. The same thing applies to religious with the vow of chastity. So it is an impediment for these two to attempt marriage.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, sister. I want to ask very quickly on, the reasons why people go into marriage. If you ask people, they'll give you a lot of reasons. Are there in any way that these reasons that people enter marriage could possibly influence the giving of their consent? And what happens in that sort of situation? Maybe, for instance, one sees a lady because she is rich, and of course he is managing life at the moment, and because of that material reason you want to go into marriage, with that person. But later on, you discover that it becomes very dramatic along the line, even if, they say, in the name of love, this marriage has been contracted, consent was given and all of that. Later on, the guy begins to withdraw that. He was not sure of what he was doing. Okay. So how do we classify that? So that's why I say, are there possible cases of, reasons for marriage influencing the giving of consent? What do you say?
Sure. Because some reasons, just like I told you, are not sincere reasons.
Enough, yes.
Sincere enough to produce a clean and pure consent.
And you said consent must be sincere.
Yes, it must be sincere, it must be pure, it must be genuine. So a person who, because of material appearance or material wealth, tries to exchange consent with the other, is doing that fraudulently. And that is called deceit.
Interesting.
That is called deceit. The canon law describes that, or at least that in canon 1098. And if this person, because of this material wealth, without any base, without any genuine love, enters into marriage, you see that that marriage is not built on genuine consent. That consent is defective.
Good.
And will produce an invalid marriage.
Oh, good.
Okay, we will hang it on that note and go on a very short break. When we come back, we shall continue. The discussion is on matrimonial consent, and we have Sister Josephine Nwagugu, Holy Family Sister of the Needy, sharing with us from her wealth of experience in canon law on the subject under discussion today. Don't go away, please stay with us.
Everything Catholic, a program that discusses anything and everything about the Catholic Church, faith, doctrines, morals, canon law, church governance, papal documents, you name it. As long as it is Catholic, it shall be discussed. Join Father Ahmed Silvanus and Father Nebo Boniface, two priests passionate about teaching the true faith of the Catholic Church, as their hosts bishops, priests, religious and distinguished laymen and women to discuss and simplify the wealth of the Church's teachings. Everything Catholic, showing on Catholic television, CTV. Everything Catholic, teaching the faith.
Welcome back to the program, Everything Catholic. We've been having a very interesting discussion on matrimonial consent with Reverend Sister Josephine Nwagugu, Professor of Canon Law at the National Missionary Seminary of St. Paul, Abuja, Nigeria. And before we left off for the break, Sister just explained to us what happens when someone gives defective consent for a wrong reason, entering into marriage. And now I'd like to take a step further. We've talked about reasons why someone may be rendered incapable of giving or receiving consent.
Yeah.
But I'd like you to shed more light on lack of due discretion as one of the factors also that affects the validity of matrimonial consent. How is this to be determined, and how does it incapacitate or invalidate consent that is already given?
So, grave lack of discretionary judgments with regard to marriage. So it has to do with one who is incapable of critically evaluating the nature of marriage, evaluating the covenant of marriage, which he or she is about to enter. And the conditions could as well be personality disorders, some other psychosis, neurosis, psychological problems that will render this person unable to grasp the nature and the meaning of marriage. So if this person who is about to enter into marriage is unable to critically evaluate what marriage is and able to make a choice, because it's only when you're able to evaluate what something is, then you're able to choose.
Whether you want it or not.
Whether you want it or not.
Okay.
So if this person is not able to do that, this person automatically is not qualified to enter into marriage. And that actually leads to the next one, which is the inability to assume the essential obligations and rights of marriage. Because even when you are able to place the consent, if the consent is not equal to the object, you cannot consent to what you are not able to do.
That's right, that's right.
Let's say, for instance, a homosexual person, lesbianism, dependency syndrome, alcoholism, drug addiction. All these conditions can render an individual, when it has gone to a chronic nature, let's say drug addict, it can render this individual incapable of assuming the essential obligations and rights of marriage. Even when you try to consent, just like I said, you cannot consent to what you cannot do.
Yeah. Exactly. Now, sister, that actually already begins, the answer to the next question I was going to ask. Following the provisions of Canon 1096, paragraph 1, saying that for matrimonial consent to exist, the contracting parties must be at least not ignorant that marriage is permanent, a permanent partnership between a man and a woman, ordered the procreation of offspring by means of sexual cooperation. Now, apart from these other factors you have given, so at what life stage can one be considered not to be ignorant of the demands or the nature of marriage as it relates to giving consent?
Okay.
Maybe in reference to age and all of that.
Well, Canon law says after puberty,
Okay.
it is presumed that at least one who is intending to enter marriage should be able to know that marriage involves some sexual cooperation between a man and a woman, and also is directed towards procreation and education of children. And that is why the age for marriage, though placed at 16 for man and 14 for woman, is still left open to different regions to modify according to the local situation. Here in Nigeria, we follow the Child Rights Act that says anybody at least after 18 is able to marry. Though this Child Right Act or this provision is not accepted in all the states. In the 36 states, it's only 23 states who have accepted this provision. But of course, the church respects that maturity needed for marriage.
So now, sister, when, say, two parties enter into marriage, and then at a later time, one says, I consented to this union not freely. You know, your opening response to what consent is, you said it is a free act of the will. So supposing someone comes up to say, this marriage I entered into, it was not, I didn't freely give consent. There was some kind of coercion from somewhere. What happens to such a union that has already been established with consent that is presumed to have been valid?
Okay. Of course, marriage enjoys the favor of law until it is proven otherwise. So, force and fear, that is count on 1103, which validates marriage as a factor that renders consent effective. As we already know, nobody can provide consent. No other human being can provide consent except the parties involved. But then, when this consent came as a pressure, as a force, it's as if it never came. You understand? It's as if nothing really happened because the will was not there. Because consent is an act of the human will. So, if there are sufficient and proven evidence that this really happened, the parties are encouraged to approach the tribunal. Okay. The parties are not capable to process that themselves on their own. So they have to go through the formalities of declaring that marriage null and void, and then authorizing them as people who are now free to enter into marriage because, of course, if that was what really happened, there was no marriage from the inception. So they are now encouraged
to marry.
Okay, thank you very much, sister. Following this response you gave again, you know, I love following you so that I'll have a better understanding. Now, there is this technical word that is often used in these matrimonial balance or issues around marriage in relation to consent. Maybe you explain it better or better break it down. It's simulation of consent. What does it mean? And what does it involve? Okay. And how can it be discovered or known?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. When you talk about simulation, it's the appearance of something that is not there. So, they come to the church to celebrate their wedding and they say, I do.
I do.
And they pronounce their marital vows.
Loudly.
But then...
And the church will now clap.
Exactly.
But then, you discover that pronouncing this I do, I take you as my lawful husband or lawful wife.
Right.
Inside, they are not really pronouncing it.
They mean the opposite.
They mean the opposite. So, when that happens, that what this person appears to be saying is not really what he or she means. Then, we talk about simulation. It could be a complete simulation or partial simulation. In the complete simulation, that is a full simulation, the whole of marriage is excluded. I do, but that, let me just
Follow
the formalities.
Formalities.
It's not as if I am marrying you, but because I have another reason. I need to get a green card for the United States of America. I need to be a minister because your father is a president. So if I marry you, he will make me a minister. So I have something else. It's not like I'm interested in this marriage. So the whole of marriage is excluded. It is just, let me follow this formality that is laid before me.
So just seen as a means to an end, to get something.
Yes. But they can also exclude the essential elements and properties of marriage, like unity, like indissolubility, like fidelity, children. For example, one may say, because unity is that the union of one man or woman to the exclusion of every other person. So, but since I already have somebody, let me still use you officially. I still keep the person I have. So the unity is excluded. Oh, let me just have a trial. If it doesn't work, bye-bye. Indissolubility of marriage, the permanence of marriage is excluded. So that is partial simulation. That means, in essence, that human act of the will is not sincere.
That's true.
So when that happens,
it's not even irrevocable, because it's supposed to be irrevocable. But then when you exclude indissolubility of marriage, the permanency of marriage, it becomes revocable.
So based on all that you have said on this program, it means therefore that when consent is simulated, there was no marriage at all.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sister. And that's the much we can take, dear viewers, on the program. Our time is up. We wish we could continue, but we have to call it an end for this week. And we thank you for being a part of the program. It has been a very interesting discussion with Reverend Sister Josephine Nwogugu, Professor of Canon Law at the National Missionary Seminary of St. Paul, and member of the Abuja Metropolitan Tribunal, Marriage Tribunal. Thank you very much, sister. We thank you for coming. May God bless you. Dear viewers, please keep a date with us next week. Do not forget to follow us on our social media handles as seen on your screen. And also, please send us your feedback, your comments, and we very much appreciate also your support. It has been Father Ame Silvanus and Father Boniface on the program as usual. Thank you, and see you next week.